I'm sure you got a few questions, so we'll go ahead and start with that.
Yeah, just where do you feel like the defense is 8 games in as you guys head into the bye week?
Uh, we've kind of got A and B to that answer. The A part is that, with the exception of occasionally a play or two with the guys that are playing significant amount of snaps. They have really played with a relentless effort, and we have tackled well for the most part, and they've shown a resiliency to play the next play, and really have produced very well. The B part of the answer is that we still got some young guys that we had a good situation with. We played 3 teams that basically against our young guys. They played their starters, and so we got some really good work there. Statistically, it didn't look like the A part of the answer all the time, but we got some really good work, and so that helped us in a big way. So it was good that it gave us some great teaching tape because they had their starters out there all the way to the end of the game in 3 different games, and so. We had started substituting, and so we got some really young guys against some very mature players, and we got some good teaching tape.
Kevin, with Trey Williams and Deshaun kind of been nicked up, have you found linebacker depth on down the line of the depth chart that you didn't know you had maybe in August?
Well, I mean, no, because what we had is all we had except for the young guys. So, I mean, that was it. I mean, we didn't have anybody. Other than the fact, we knew Richard, Daryl, Deshaun, and Trey. That was kind of how we got through last year. So it's the same guys, and with the exception of Trey, is how we'll get through next year. But Chandler Wooten and KJ Britt have gotten some snaps, and so that's helped them and helped us because at least we're not in a situation to where we don't have other guys that we can steal some snaps from.
How thin was the secondary starting to get, and how important is the next 2 weeks ahead? Because without Trey, without Javaris, Carlton suffering an injury, Jeremiah playing through an injury.
Yeah.
I think there was somebody else in there who I'm forgetting. The bodies are starting to get pretty thin back.
Yeah, it got real thin. And there were times where we were just from play to play. In fact, I don't know if you even noticed it. Maybe you did, but there was a couple of series in which Stephen Roberts had to go to corner. And so we've kind of mixed and matched. Now, the good thing about it, Daniel Thomas and Jordan Peters have progressed nicely, and they're in playing form for young guys and doing quite well. But those other guys have been, with Trey Matthews missing snaps, Javaris has missed basically 4 games. And Carlton has been nicked up a little bit. And to his credit, he played through an injury the other night that I wasn't sure when it happened that he was going to be able to. But he showed toughness and did. Denson is probably the one that has played the most with the most pain. And so, that's the SEC. And, you don't want them out there when they have if they really are injured and can't go, you don't want them there. But, the doctors tell us, hey, if they say they can go, they're good. They're not going to injure anymore. But they have not been full speed.
How do you feel about having, do you think most of them will be full speed?
Hope so. That's a plus. I mean, we can sit there and woe is to me about the fact that we had guys with injuries and we had to rotate guys and play guys at different times in different situations that wasn't the normal rotation. But that having been said, there's a lot of teams around the country that have lost guys for the year, and we have not done that. So, we just have to fight through it, and hopefully we'll get them back for the A&M game, all of them. We may not, but we hadn't lost them for the year, so that's a plus.
Can you talk about Nick Coe? It looks like he's still making progress.
Yeah, he is. I mean, people forget. I mean, he's a redshirt freshman. I mean, this is his first year of college football, and Nick is one of those guys. He still works on his craft, and needs to. Rodney would be the first one to tell you. Nick would be the second one to tell you that he's got a high upside. He's not there yet, but he's well on his way. But even when Nick has the athleticism and the tenacity that even when he is a little bit off or makes a mistake, he can still make a play. And that's a credit to his athleticism and his work ethic and just fighting spirit, really.
What's been the most impressive thing about his progress?
Probably the biggest thing is he's just, I mean, young guys, you can see pass rush early, but then the skill set to pass rush, but then to execute that pass rush and maybe all the time, some of those sacks that other people got were affected by him. I mean, they had to step up, they had to get away from him. Somebody got him because they did. So that's been impressive. But then the other thing is he's really improved his run game play. His technique on run blocks.
How impressive has Jeffrey Holland's season been? I know you were talking about his son before the season.
Well, I remember a group of people at some point in time, they asked, well, what are you going to do about, pass rush? And I think the coach said that if you waited to answer that question 4 years after you signed Carl and Montravius, you knew you were probably a little bit late. I don't know who answered that question. I don't remember specifically. But it wasn't you, I know that. But there was somebody in this room that asked that more than once. I think what it was is we saw that coming. Jeff had a knack for rushing the passer, and he's got a gift of doing it. But then the biggest thing about Jeff Holland is his heart, his fighting spirit. It's real. He has a passion for the game. He works extremely hard, and he enjoys going out there and giving it everything he's got. And sometimes in pass rush, it just comes down to relentless effort, and he's got that.
Yeah, does that carry over? I mean, 4 forced fumbles. I mean, when he's getting there and getting the ball out.
Yeah, and I don't know that I've ever seen what happened the other night. Play 53 and play 54. Play 53 was a third down. It was a sack, forced fumble. Deshaun recovered it. Play 54, it was a sack, forced fumble, and Jeffrey recovered it. So, he had back-to-back plays of sack, forced fumble, recovery. I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen that.
How are Big Cat and TD coming along?
Well, they got their first sack in the game the other night. They have a skill set. They're young. They go out there and try to learn every day. They improve every day, but they're still young. So but they've got a good upside. I told TD, I called him field goal and told him I wasn't going to call him TD until he got his first sack. So he told me in the locker room the other day that after the game that I could call him TD now that he got that sack. So no, I can't. You only got a half a sack, so I'm just going to call you T. So.
Kevin, how do you explain for you across the board, there's almost statistical improvement in every single category this year? It's not just pass rush, that in pretty much every category for you guys so far, other than I think red zone, you guys
Right.
have improved rather dramatically in
Right.
just across the board. How have you been able to do this through 8 games?
Well, it's them. I mean, it's not. It's players. The players buying into the system, the standard, the leadership in which when you go on that practice field and you see guys like Trey Matthews and Trey Williams, Deshaun Davis and Marlon Davison, guys like that. I mean, they're after each other and other guys to do their job, and that's the second year of the process. The second year of it, and the standard of everybody understanding that and pushing to it. They have a passion for it. They've tasted some success, and so they kind of like it. And I just think it's contagious in terms of the expectation, the standard, and those guys holding each other accountable and responsible to meet that standard. They take it seriously, and I think that's really what's happening. But at the end of the day, I mean, we got good players. They're very coachable. They work extremely hard. But it goes back to the first part of that statement. We got good players.
When last season ended, it was about finishing. It was the second halves against Alabama and the Sugar Bowl weren't as good. The results aren't just good overall, but they're better against better opponents. That you're ranking better against the Clemson, LSU
Right.
opponents compared to those who guess when your second, third teams are out there and starters. It starts to get skewed a bit, but you're doing even better against tougher competition.
Right.
how rewarding is that to see that they are performing at that level?
Well, one of the greatest things about coaching is going into the locker room after a game or going into a meeting room after a game, the post next practice and showing the tape and showing what they've accomplished and then teaching them in their mistakes. They take pride in that, and you can see it in them. It means something to them. I really think this. I think probably the biggest difference in the whole thing is it starts up front. I mean, those guys up front kind of set the tone in the run game, in the pass game. They set the tone. But we've got a group of guys that the nucleus of the guys have been together for this is the second year in it, and it is you're only as good as your next play, and we hammer that home all the time. But the facts are that you got to keep improving. You're not going to stay the same. You either get better or you get worse. And these guys have bought into that in a major way. They don't want to hear about well, this happened or that happened. They're holding each other, like for an example, when the young guys are in there in the fourth quarter against those standards, against those 3 or 4 teams, those older guys were not happy that they surrendered anything. And so it's kind of a culture that has been developed in that room, which is really what the whole purpose of it is develop that culture where the standard is so high and the expectations that each man is held accountable and responsible by each other to get their job done. And that's kind of what's happening.
How important is it having Trey Williams' voice back out on the field, even on a limited basis, and going forward as you try to get him healthier?
Well, I mean, he's kind of he's a very mature individual. He's been around a lot. He's seen both sides of the coin, and so he knows what it takes to be at that standard, the work it took to get there, and how to hold it. And so, when he speaks, he's speaking from experience, and I think the players respect that.
Can you talk about Marlon Davidson? I know he's not full speed, but he's been playing hard.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're not going to play guys that can't play hard if they're injured enough to that, and he's been relentless in that. He's had about everything you can have, it seemed like. The other day at practice, I asked him to open his mouth, see if he had braces on his teeth, because he had braces on everything else. I mean, it just he was banged up, but he's coming out of it now. He affects others. He affects others. He affects those guys he lines up across, and he affects the guys he lines up with, and that's all you can ask.
How about Truesdale? How's he coming along?
Good. He's good. He's a powerful man, and he's for a young guy, he is developing to where he's gaining more and more snap. I think the other night, early in the second quarter or late in the first quarter, he was in for a significant amount of time. And he's and for a freshman to go in those trenches, you got to be something. And he's a fighter. He's still developing his technique, but he's a powerful, powerful man.
As you start to look ahead to Texas A&M, is what we've seen from their young quarterback, Mond, and also what makes Christian Kirk just that difficult a matchup at receiver?
Well, the speed and experience as far as the receiver. Kirk is a very, very fast individual, but he's also got the experience of the league now, as opposed to I've seen him every year since he's been in the league, and he's now experienced with it, and so the maturity of it is another level. As far as the quarterback, you watch the games, and I have watched them. He's just improved, and they've kind of tailor-made some of their offense to him. They've changed some things in it, and you've seen the migration of that, and he looks like he's comfortable in it now. Now, we didn't practice against A&M today. We actually practiced against featured key points of the other 3 opponents that we have left.
If there is one area that you probably do want to look to improve on down the stretch, it is the red zone.
Yeah.
What you're seeing just as far as what.
Well, statistically, it really, here's the thing about that, and I get what you're saying, and I don't get into stats, but we cross-checked everything this week, and so I had the same question. And then when I got to watching it and realizing it, in Redstone, if you're just looking at stats, I think we're, and these numbers aren't exactly right, but it's like 9 trips they've kicked field goals, or 7 trips they've kicked field goals, and 8 trips they've got touchdowns. The difference in that and this time last year was we had 2 turnover and a 4th down stop. Well, if you look at those numbers, they're so. If you get 2 stops where they don't get any points, you block a field goal. The blocked field goal at Mississippi State. Then we had a turnover in the red zone, a 4th down stop, and so that kicks it the other direction in a big way. So I was a little bit taken back because when I first started doing the studies, I thought, well, this is really different than last year if you just look at face value numbers. And when you watch the tape and then watch last year's tape and compare the two, the difference is the turnover, the 4th down stop, and the blocked field goal, which means 0. So then the percentage changes in a big way. So we got to get a blocked field goal and a turnover and a 4th down stop. I almost got the 4th down stop.
Sean Davis, how's he doing?
Who's that?
Sean Davis.
He's doing well. He's an old vet now, so he's doing well. Is that it? Okay. Yeah. James,